So this takes me to the next point. What do you think India has to do in its relationship with China? I mean, now let's shift the focus to China, because we tried something, they did not reciprocate, they are not interested in settling the border. They are playing, they are doing lip service, they'll help us with the UN Security Council, but then they say no. When there is a known terrorist group, Islamic terrorist group, everybody else is willing to blacklist them. China puts their foot down and blocks it. So they're double-faced. They are not straight people. So what do you think India should do, considering that they're very powerful? What are the weapons India has? Both positive, carrots and sticks.
Excellent. Before I switch to China, just one last word on Pakistan. Their advantage is geography. Your task should be to change that geography. I leave it at that.
Absolutely. Yes, and that requires Balochistan action.
And that requires some concerted strategic thinking and action with a well, designed long-term blueprint. And
right.
If India summons up the political will, it can and should be done. So that's one. Coming now to the Chinese dragon. The elephant in the room is China. The fact of the matter is that China has, by the very fact that Xi Jinping went to Pakistan and he decided to back the China-Pakistan economic corridor, put his money where his mouth is, and invest $51 billion in Pakistan. The previous Chinese regimes had hesitated. They were not sure how stable is this state, and how rational is this state actor. But Xi Jinping made that commitment. Now, having made that commitment, quite obviously, he has managed to get India's back up. India is now pushing back. Unlike the India of a decade back, where the main thing was don't annoy the Chinese, don't annoy the Chinese, I think the present political dispensation is quite clear. India can and will push back. And it is not a walkover for China. They may have a defense budget which is $150 billion to our $40 billion. But the fact is that their commitments are far too many. And India has just done the right thing. We can play a tit-for-tat strategy. If China backs Pakistan, India needs to reach out heavily to Japan, to Vietnam, to South Korea, to Taiwan if required, to the Philippines, to Indonesia, to all states that feel threatened by the rise of an increasingly aggressive China. We have the cards that we can play. And if beyond a point there is a Tibet card, China, that's a great vulnerability. They have not been able to assimilate that region. And if push comes to shove, and if China will support, non-state actors in Pakistan like this Jaish-e-Mohammed Supremo, then I'm afraid India is justified in trying to escalate and give a tit-for-tat response.
But let's look at the practical. Let's look from ideology to practicalities. Practicality-wise, China's ability to use Pakistan against India is huge. India's ability to use Tibet is not so huge because it's a small population. They're not militarized. They're not terrorists. We don't have the same physical presence in Tibet. We have a small community of monks and Buddhists in Dharamsala and various places. So our ability to hit back with force, physical force, is not all that great. What would you say to that?
You see, my allusion was more to what you can do in a quasi-alliance with Japan, with South Korea. There are huge navies, and the Chinese are looking seawards now. Don't forget that their entire economic miracle is on the coastal belt. Their greatest vulnerability is along the Chinese coastline. Their special economic zones, Shanghai, Guangdong, etc., are their core areas now, they cannot trade space for time there. Therefore, the naval aspect of their defense is becoming increasingly important. Here, India is increasingly becoming a strong naval power. And in alliance structures, in alliance relationships or quasi-alliance relationships with countries like Japan, with countries like South Korea, with Taiwan, India is in a position to push back. Tibet by itself will not, worry the Chinese. We don't want that the CIA revolt, the brutality with which it was crushed, to be repeated. They just sold the Tibetans out. the importance of Tibet stems from a correlation with a military clash between the two countries. A Tibet up in flames with a border war taking place is quite a different scenario than just a Tibet which is put on fire for a brief amount of time and they clamp down very hard. No, that won't work. Anything to do with Tibet has to be in correlation to a physical, limited conflict between the two countries. There, the Tibetan, the Tibetan guerrillas have a tremendous amount of leverage that they provide us in correlation with the conflict.